How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Scribbles with Jonathan. In this episode here, we're going to go from what you're seeing here, which is almost a tight sketch, basically, type pencils, and we're going to go into inks and some colors and all that good stuff. We'll talk about who this character is in a little bit. We'll get there. This video is a little bit lengthy because it is following a full process and stuff. But I just thought it'd be interesting to just show this kind of thing because it's a personal character of mine, one that goes way back to when I was even in high school. But again, once I get into that, we can talk about and reminisce and go into all of that. I just want to talk about a little bit of the process as we're going here before we get into story time. And so this character here is called Phoenix. It's a character of mine. And the website that this is going to be for is doing a giant collaboration where we're putting a bunch of characters that a lot of us have created into one big splash image, which is friggin' awesome. But this here's an experiment that I wanted to try based off of a conversation that my buddy Will Robson has talked about while we have our little chats at night sometimes. And it is something that, I have worked on before with some other things. You guys, if you've seen the Thanos workflow example, it's the very first video on my channel right now, talking about going from pencils and scanning it into inking and things like that. The main reason for that is because I feel like when I'm inking, as you guys have seen throughout all the videos that I post on here, my inks feel like I'm doing what you're seeing right now, where I'm adding line weights and shadows and building up going from like a sketch into an actual finished drawing, but that drawing would be inked at the end. And I feel like it's missing a lot of life and a lot of energy. And that's one thing pencils, to me anyway, why I love penciling so much, and I do miss it. But the one thing I do love about it is that it has gray, right? And gray can be built up into starting from a very light gray to a dark gray. And that lets you not only get volume and start feeling shape out just by slightly sketching and get heavier with it, but it also lets you get, some energy that you can't really get just going from straight inks. Inks, I'm finding anyway, that you get a different sort of energy, right? It's more of like line quality, strokes, and things like that. It's different. It's just different. And I don't want to spend the whole video talking about why I think that's different and all that. But I just feel that way. So I thought this here would be an awesome opportunity to try this out. So the sketch first started on my Surface Pro. I did release a video last week talking about my Surface Pro discussion part 2, something like that. And I talk about why I picked it back up and bought it, and I finally got it set up now with Manga Studio 5, and it feels radically different and awesome. I was actually, that very first sketch that you guys had seen was where this whole thing started, which was really cool. It was really liberating to know that I can get a quality that I'm not too bummed out about, mobile, which was awesome. But I knew I had to start getting into some inks and coloring in that. So I'm at home right now, so I just dropped this into my Dropbox, loaded up in Manga Studio, and then we're going right where you can see so far. And the pencil that I'm using, a lot of people have been asking me for it. I will be releasing it on my store very soon. I will make a video to let you guys know. I don't want to get too fancy with it because there's a lot of people talk about the Friendin brushes, and I highly recommend checking them out. I know I believe I purchased one, or so, I got them somehow, to be honest, and Will may have sent them to me. And they're fantastic brushes, and that I would suggest people pick up because it's awesome stuff. But the pencil here, I do want to put out there because people are asking me about it. So you guys can look forward to that. Now, all these windows that I'm popping up, like, what the hell's going on? What I'm doing, if you notice, if you press tab on your keyboard, I'm not sure about on a Mac, but on a PC, if you press the tab button on your keyboard, it'll get rid of all your menus, so it's just the canvas, which is awesome, especially if you're working like I am on the smaller Cintiq. Room is very valuable, and being able to open that up is awesome. Now, the really cool thing in Manga Studio 5 is what I'm doing is I'm actually changing the very top bar. I'm adding things. So I can click a button to rotate the screen. I can click a button to, what else do I have there? Flip it horizontally. Things like that. And it's speeding my workflow up. It's making it a little bit more easier on the wrist, being able to rotate, and all that cool stuff. On my Surface Pro, I do hook up a Logitech USB gamepad, and that lets me toggle shortcuts to it as well. I don't have it hooked up. I used to have it hooked up to my PC, but I find that Manga Studio 5 is making things very simple for my digital work, and just adding it up to the toolbar at the top there has been phenomenal. So what it's helping me do is rotate and just, again, get a comfortable understanding of rendering, as opposed to, like, I'm very used to just having my bamboo set up, or when I was using an Intuos, tablet and just drawing it on there, not really tilting. There was no tilt action I was getting. So over time I've gotten used to just drawing like that. So now we're getting ready for the inks. I'm just lowering the opacity a little bit and dropping the lines of blue like normal. And you can see me just doing some lines there. What I'm doing is I grabbed my inking brush, which I think is the default. Dang, I forget which one it is. It's one of the first two. I think it's the G pen or whatever the hell that is, or mapping pen. I think it might be that. So I have that, and I was just checking the sizes and by testing it on the actual line work underneath, and then just going in from there. And I wanted to try a couple things here. Is since that I have a lot of the shading where I already know it's going to be, I can already take a lot of the guesswork out of where my line weight should be, and my shadows. I can start making selections like you guys have always seen me do, except now all that thought is kind of taken out of it because I've already done it in the pencil stage. I just need to fill it in with a paint bucket. The only real big thing I'm adding is some rendering and adding some extra lines to where they should be, and just adding that in there because I can already see the image done. One negative that came out of this whole experience is I still feel like this method here required you to be an inker. The method I would do before, you guys can check all the other videos where it's just a tight, air quotes here, sketch, and all of the work I'm doing here with line weights and shadows, I would start doing on the fly as if I was drawing it. That was more like digital pencils, I guess you'd call it, but in that case it's just like it's like a marker that I'm penciling with, which sounds a little weird. But so what I'm trying to say is this method here is going to take some work. I do enjoy the results at the end. I think they feel way more akin to where I'm hoping to get my art digitally. But there's a lot of amateurish ink work being done that I feel are there, where it's like some of the lines are too thick, some of the lines, you know, mostly it's just getting control over inking pencils, because in a lot of ways I'm inking over somebody else's pencils, right? This is like, and this is going to sound really weird, but it's an earlier version of myself in a different mindset while I was penciling, and then once it's time to jump into inks, it's a different mindset altogether where I need to go for clarity. You know, look in the ear there was a lot of guesswork. It's like I know what an ear looks like, but even look at the guy's let me see when we calm down here and I can pick a spot. So if you look at his little hat thing, his bandana, I know that there's going to be a lot of cuts in there, like to show folds, and you'll see when we get in there, and it turned out pretty cool, but it's still a lot of just shaded pencil, right? So that's where I'm saying the inker mentality has to come in, as if it's somebody else's work, because when you're penciling, you know an inker's going to get it, even if it's you, and you can figure that stuff out later, but it's a different flow, a different workflow, and that's what I'm trying to get used to with this method here. Is this quicker? I don't know. That ideally, it's covering two things. What I'm trying to do here is speed, get work done quicker, and secondly, better. I want my art to look better, right? We want our art to be more appealing, more interesting, just better at all fronts. It's the whole point of, excuse me, it's the whole point of trying to work and get better. Excuse me. I think I swallowed my tongue there and it was getting stuck in my throat. So in saying that, it's going to take some work in this method here. I'm very excited to see where it goes because I'm loving the hell out of the pencils in Manga Studio 5. I would recommend for those of you that are trying to get used to pencils, or maybe you haven't found a really cool pencil or something. I was having a lot of success with the default rough pencil, I believe it was called. And the thing that changed it for me was, if you look on the right, if you change the actual color, if you rewind this video, you can see while I'm doing my pencils what shade of gray I'm at. And that helps me build volume up. I didn't like shading in black, and there's a shade of gray that's going to help you up big time. Another thing that I could recommend you might do is actually scan in some of your own pencils. Scan them right into Manga Studio, and just grab the eyedropper tool and eyedrop the pencils so you can see what color gray you're used to working in. A simple solution that might help you out. So here's more guesswork, like I'm saying. Like you can still see the triangles that are in there, but I'm adding some things, which is kind of cool. You know, I'm digging a lot of where this can go. I'm pretty excited about it. So yeah, let's just jump into story time real quick. So, like I said, this character's name is Phoenix, and he's for a website called ENTERVOID.com. ENTERVOID.com. And essentially what it is it's a, I would call it Mortal Kombat / Street Fighter comics, and at least that's what it was when I first got into it. I haven't been there in a long time, what you would do is each comic book artist, creates a character of their own. And back in the day, we had to make a win pose, a lose pose, and a character sheet. And what you do is you challenge other artists' fighters, other artist characters. And you would do a 3-page minimum to as many as you wanted, I believe it was, of you fighting that character, your character fighting that person's character, and your own story and all that cool stuff. And then it would go up for voting for the participants of the website. So you'd go in there and you'd read 2 comics and you'd pick which one you like, and that became the canon of the story. So if I made my character fighting somebody else and my character lost in the voting, the next time I would do a story, I might bring that up. I might say like, oh, after that loss, I had to rethink things. Either way, it was just awesome. It was a very great experience, and the website's still going strong. But Heather Breckel, you guys have heard me talk about her. She's done some coloring for me as well. She's doing some professional coloring for IDW right now. And I saw her post a link to in the forum where they were talking about this, and I just had to jump on it. This is a character of mine. His name was Phoenix. He could control fire, and he was like a wrestler. So I was a big fan of I'm still a big fan of Zangief. I love those big, muscly, ripped wrestling kind of guys. I don't know what it is. There's just something fun about it for me. And I wanted to give him a superpower, right? I wanted something in there besides just a big wrestler like Zangief. So I don't know why I picked fire, to be honest with you. The idea of a phoenix sounded fun, so that's what I did. This version here is actually a redesign. I was going to get back into Intervoid maybe 4 years ago, just for fun, just as casual, good time fun. And I designed this guy, like I said, way back in high school, so that's going back, graduated like 12 years ago. So the website's been around for a very long time. It's got a lot of rich history. A lot of really talented people have I don't want to say come from there, but that have worked there. Some that I know off the top of my head, I always forget Galvo's name. That's his name on there. I believe he was doing, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was doing some coloring for Elephant Men. I believe they're from Image. And there's a guy also, what was his name? I just remember a lot of these people's names from what their aliases were on the website. It was KR. He's doing work right now for DC, actually. And if you guys have been following, there's like this article about Teen Titans, I believe, about the cover being garbage. And he's the artist on that book. So you guys should check out his work. Regardless of that standpoint, awesome stuff. All that's to say, a lot of cool and talented people were coming from this website, and it was a fun community to be a part of. And what we're doing here is just getting our characters like this, and then Heather is actually going to combine them all into like a massive poster. Hopefully I can purchase one because I think it would just be cool to have it in there. So what we're doing now is obviously what you would do in Photoshop. That's where I like to do my coloring. I haven't really dabbled too much in Manga Studio. I didn't feel it appropriate to do so while I was recording this. I didn't want to do a lot of guesswork as the video is going to be long as is. So really quickly, just to get it quick and done, is I just turn the line art to multiply. It's the fastest way you can get coloring done that I know of. And I like to fill a bottom layer or a background color that might be white. I fill it with like a darker color or something so that the colors pop a bit so I can see what's going on. Then I'll make a layer in between, and this is what I would call my flats. What I'm doing is I'm selecting the entire character. It might seem like a little extra work, but filling them in like this, and then I can lock that layer and then just start adding willy-nilly colors. Like you'll see me, I believe I go into the red, no, yellow. So you saw how crazy or how big that brush was. It's only going to contour to the flat layer, so that way, like right there, I can just draw right outside of his anatomy. And the next couple steps we're going to do, I'll kind of talk about when we get there, is just adding some shadows, very, very light shadows. I didn't want to spend all day on this. It doesn't need to for what it is. Just some good old classic fun. But getting back to Intervoid, what I loved about that website was that it was an alternative way for people to learn how to make comic books. And when I was growing up, you would always find scripts online you could do, or your other alternative was, besides actually making your own, which I found a lot of us weren't actually doing, was just making our own comics. This was our way of making our own comics. But, I forgot to talk about Cannon White. He's also a huge talent that came from Intervoid as well. He's doing work with, it's called Uber, is the name of the book. Who is that? Antarctic Press, I believe, is publishing it. Check it out. It's awesome. Amazing, amazing book. Anyway, getting back to this, but what you could do with those comics was awesome. It was really just fun. If you like the idea of, casual comics that you can take serious, but it was all about beefing up your skills, fighting other people to get better, and a huge sense of community. It didn't matter if you were just learning to draw or if you had years of experience. If what I've talked about at all has even grabbed your interest, I would highly recommend going over to that website right now and check it out. Make a character, get into a single fight. The experience is awesome. If not to have somebody else draw your character, that was sweet too, man. There's a lot of love that came from that site, and a lot of mistakes for myself too. It's still something I'm struggling with, where it's deadlines. It's tough. For myself, I like to commit to a lot of projects, and unfortunately, they start to overlap, and because of life and things start getting kicked in the junk a bit. And it's something I've always been trying to improve on, but that's why I ultimately left Intervoid, was because I was starting fights that people were hoping I would finish, and I just didn't get around to it, which is a shame, and it's actually kind of offensive, right? Because you're asking other people to spend their time doing work because it's fun. It's supposed to be fun, and then your opponent just kind of phones it in or it doesn't show up. And as much as I don't like to be that guy, I was that guy. So I had to walk away myself. And in saying so, it's a huge regret. But all the awesome that came from it, amazing stuff. Just getting back to this real quick, what I was doing with that shadow layer is I like to use like a purplish blue, and I set it to multiply, and then I just draw my shadows in that way. And why I use that color is because it adds like that kind of harmony to every single color, no matter what is being affected by that purple, the red, his skin color, the yellow, all that stuff. But I find it's getting a little dark here, so soon I'll be lightening it. I'm not sure if that was just it, but I will. Yeah, I think I did. I lightened the shadow because it was just getting drowned out there. And then next, I'm just making lasso selections and using the airbrush again and just painting in a gradient. You can use a gradient tool if you'd like. That does work. And we're almost wrapping it up here. I'm just finishing up the color on his boots here, which are supposed to be on fire. That part, I'm not too comfortable if I did a very good job on that or not. But I kind of liked, ultimately, at the end of it, how it looked. It kind of looks like the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 style, which I'm a big fan of. And here I just make a layer on top of everything and just add like a bounce light for the fire. That way it goes over the shadows and draws actually in the shadows. It looks kind of cool. But anyway, I hope you guys had some fun. You enjoyed this. Keep reading comics. Keep making comics. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and we'll talk soon.